Welcome everybody to Her Storytelling. We are Women Colorado. Oh, when did we start? Over a year ago now, huh? April of 2012. So we've been around for a little while. We base everything on education, advocacy, and empowerment within not just women, but within the family. And storytelling is a great way to share where we've come from, where we've gone, and where we're never going back to. So, welcome, enjoy. There's refreshments in the back. We have great storytellers today. Enjoy yourselves. Let's have MJ Brett.
All right, first up is a local author, and I think you will all agree once you hear her, you'll want all of her books, which are for sale on the back. She is going to tell the fascinating story, or a little piece of the fascinating story about a woman caught in the middle of circumstances bigger than herself, called World War II and Hitler, and everything going on with that. And as a mother of 3 children, she had many difficult decisions. And MJ wrote the true story, the book, the biography of this very courageous woman, and she's going to give us a little piece of what she wrote about. So MJ, you can give her a big round of applause. You can sit if you'd like.
Oh, I'll stand. Probably I kind of couldn't see to walk. However, I also am known to be very accident prone, so if I trip over something, please don't laugh any louder than you have to.
Okay. I got into this book because my mother-in-law, my second mother-in-law, I got out of high school 16, went to college, became a teacher, and my first husband died very suddenly at 34. And so all of a sudden I had 9 teenagers in the house at the time he passed away. So it's a matter of learning how to manage for yourself. I took the job overseas for 1 year to try to get my head together, or slit my wrist, whichever came first, and wound up staying 21 years because I liked it, teaching in Germany, and I brought home a German souvenir, Eric. Now, when I married Eric in Germany, I wound up having a name like Margaret Jean Borland - Brett Schneider, and so I go by MJ Brett. It's much easier, okay? Otherwise, I'd wrap all the way around. Königsberg, I have a little map in the beginning because nobody knows where the heck Königsberg is. Königsberg, this used to be all Germany, and after World War I, they put the Danzig corridor in there, and that isolated East Prussia way out here in the boonies. And during the war, when they were starting to lose it, Hitler ordered that all of the people out here could not come back to the mainland. They had to stay out there and fight to the last man, woman, and child. Now that didn't go over too well with Moody. She had 3 little boys. Pictures of them are on the back, 9, 7, and 4. I wound up marrying the oldest one, and I changed his name in the book too to protect the guilty. He was Willie in the book. He got a little mischievous, you know, along the way. Anyway, her husband had been missing for about 2 years. Everybody was drafted into the German army, and he was missing for 2 years, and she didn't know if he was dead or alive. And all of a sudden she got a telegram, very cryptic, that said, I am in a hospital in Carlsbad, Czechoslovakia. Get the boys out of Königsberg now. Well, now, if Hitler had this rule that said nobody from East Prussia could leave to the last man, woman, and child, how was she supposed to do that? Well, it took an Ausweis. An Ausweis is a German document similar to a passport, only you had to have it to go from one place to another, not just, you know, anywhere. And in order to get the Ausweis, you had to go to the Standesamt and see the Bürgermeister, the mayor. And he would approve or disapprove, and of course he was disapproving all of them, but he finally approved hers, but he wiped out the and 3 sons that went with it. Now, what is she going to do? Her husband has told her that she has to get the boys out of Königsberg. In those days, you did what your husband said. In fact, he was, I was joking a few minutes ago that I dated in the 50s, and I can still remember throwing a bowling game once in a while so my date wouldn't get his feelings hurt. But, you know, things have changed, as you people will know. But Europe was very much behind us. They had a saying, you're going to love this, gals, Kinder Kuka Kirche. And they used this for everything. This was their unwritten law. It means that you're only supposed to be interested as a woman in your children, your kitchen, and your church. Period. Kinder Kuka Kirche. That's it. And anything else, her husband loved her very much, but if she asked any kind of political question, he would kiss her on the nose and say, don't trouble your pretty little head about it. I'll take care of it. Today we would say, yuck. But at that time, that's the way it was. And so here she is. She's never been on her own before. She's never had to make decisions of her own before. And she's got to go get this Standesamt Auschwitz. And the mayor marks out the N3 children. So she thinks, well, maybe if she gets her own Auschwitz, she can sneak the kids in some other way. So she goes to the clerk to get the Auschwitz and presents him with the mayor's signed and stamped. Everything in Germany has to have stamps on it or it's no good. If it doesn't have the right stamp on it, you're done. Anyway, she had it signed and stamped by the Bürgermeister. She takes it to this little mousy clerk, and the clerk starts typing away, and then she says she sees the and 3 sons marked out. So she kind of looks like, well, you know, do you have somebody to take care of your 3 children? What will your children do? And her sympathy, Mutti thought maybe she could go ahead and type the and 3 sons in there. The lady apparently, she looks at the wall and she fiddles around a little while. Mutti has a little bit of hope, and then all of a sudden she decides she can't do it, you know. She looks behind her, and there is an armed guard sitting 5 feet away, and she just doesn't feel she can do it. So she types that out, hands it to Mutti with only herself, and then she stands up and shakes Mutti's hand and says, it's a pity that there isn't, you couldn't get an and 3 sons typed in next to your name, you know, on the same typewriter, of course, after curfew. And Mutti is thinking, is she being honest with me? Is she making a suggestion? But the first thing people lost in Germany was their right of a free press, because he gave everybody radios and he operated everything. You could only listen to him. And the second thing that went was the freedom of speech, because we can say pretty much what we want to say and nobody's going to put us in jail for it. But by the 1944, it had already changed to the point where you couldn't even go talk in front of your grocer or your butcher, because you didn't know who was the one that was going to turn you in, and then you'd be gone. They even changed, one of his first moves was to get rid of all the regular teachers and put in party members. Now that gives a whole new meaning to show and tell, doesn't it? Anyway, everybody felt like they were being recorded, they were being watched. It was a very tenuous thing. So she was afraid that maybe this lady was trying to tell her something, and maybe she wasn't. She didn't dare ask. So she left, but her mind started working, and she made a little diagram of the office, and she thought, maybe I can do this. It might be the only way I can take my children. And she sure as heck wasn't going to go without them. So that night, when she goes home and tells her nanny what she's going to do, the nanny just gets really angry with her and say, well, they'll take you away and put you in a camp and they'll take the children away. You can't do that. And she feels like it's the only chance I've got to get the children out, like my husband said. So she takes the last Strassenbahn, figuring she'll get there a few minutes before curfew. She she borrows the black coat of her nanny, which turns out to be a good move. She walks around the Standesamt, which is like our city hall, okay, looking for windows that might be open. And the only one that she can find open is a little bitty one, and she's small, but she was worried about it. And then there were two guards talking in front of these big arched staircases that went up in the front of the building, and she thought she spied a window underneath those big arched staircases where they were talking. So she waited till they left, and then she crawled in that window real quick before she could change her mind, because believe me, she was trying to tell herself she could do this, but she knew of her own self that she wasn't really advanced as far as illegal opportunities were. She just really was feeling guilty and feeling scared, but she was trying to talk a good game. She got into the basement and had to wait until her eyes got adjusted. And then she tippy-toed through the basement, had all kinds of big furniture, and she saw the light around a door. So that must go into either an office or a hallway or some way to get up to the second floor. And so she opens the door just a crack and steps out into the hallway of the basement. And then she has to get up to the rotunda, the entrance. She knows how to get to the second floor from the rotunda, but she's got to figure out how to get there first. She makes it up the steps one at a time, very carefully. It's wooden steps, and this building is probably 1,000 years old, you know. So she's trying very hard to get up there. She gets to the rotunda, realizes where she is, goes up the steps, and starts to walk across, and there's a guy, the guard, is sitting in the little office at the end of the hall, reading a book. She has to cross this path of light, and so she's huddling against the wall, watching him, thinking, how am I gonna, but she just finally decided, well, maybe he's really absorbed in the book, or he's really lazy. So she went very quickly across and then stood in the shadows and watched, and he hadn't moved, so apparently he hadn't heard it. So she went into the office, found the white clerk's machine, and in those days they had big wooden covers that went over your typewriter, and it wasn't locked. The little lock was hooked in the hasp and not locked. So she realized then that the lady had been trying to tell her something, that there were good people in the world, and that this woman had tried to help her. So she pulled off the cover very quietly, and of course all the lights went out. It was curfew, blackout. And so she is trying to get the paper, her Ausweis, into the typewriter, click, 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 and trying to keep it quiet, and then she types. She thinks she's in the right place. She tried to measure it with her fingers, and she clicks "and 3 sons" at the end of where she thinks her name is. She folds it up, she goes out, and the guy isn't in the little room. Where is he? Maybe he heard something and he's waiting to catch her. She doesn't know what. And of course she realized how serious this was. You would get locked up and never get back if you lived, you know, for violating a document. And here she's thinking, my gosh, Daddy's good little girl. I have lied, I have broken into a public building, and now I've forged a document, and I violated the lights, the blackout and the curfew, and she's just standing there shaking, thinking, I don't think I can move. But she gets to the stairway and starts down the stairway and sees his light going all over the stairway, over the wall. So she hides behind, underneath, and sits there praying in her black coat, which was a big thing. Please God, make him go upstairs, make him go upstairs. And he looks all over with the flashlight, and all of a sudden he's right beside her. So she was holding her breath, sitting in a knee position, which hurts anyway, and trying to keep quiet. And he does go upstairs. She is able to get out, finally, find her way out, as scared as she was. And then the next morning she can after blackout is over, she can look at her Ausweis. Right below her name and above of Königsberg, East Prussia, is a slanted line that says, and 3 sons. And so she realizes there's no way in the world she's going to get by getting the Gestapo that checks all the trains. There's no way she's going to be able to get the kids on a train and pass the Gestapo with an obviously altered document. And then she decides it's my only way. She squares her shoulders and decides she's going to do it. That's Moody's War. There's 8 other books out there too.
Anyway.
Thank you so much, MJ. And MJ Brett is a lot easier. And what an exciting story that gives us a lot to remember of what the women would go through that are the untold stories. And that's essentially what we're here to do, is keep women's history alive and what women have been through. Next, I want to introduce Michelle Murray. She's Miss Colorado, as well as, I'm sorry, the name of your organization?
Fem City, Denver.
Fem City, and she's in the Denver chapter. So please welcome Michelle Murray.
Thank you. No, awesome. Thanks, everybody. I'm a mover, so I'm going to move the... Okay. I have some show and tell, actually, that I'll pass around while I'm talking. And you guys are welcome to look at it or do whatever. So here. So my presentation is actually my personal story. Here I'm going to sit. So, thank you. So my personal story is all about helping you find if you're supposed to be going after your passion or after your dream. And I think in today's reality, women of all ages and men have that challenge, you know, and there are different things, you know, lots of times the things that we dream about aren't the same things that we're passionate about. So my story is my personal challenge with those two different things. I had this sweet drink I'm getting a little tickle in my throat. So my story all started in high school, and I'm from Wisconsin, and I was really awkward in high school. I didn't hit my growth spurt until I was like a senior in high school, and I got made fun of a lot. So the only way that I could actually feel like I was being, that I was important, was to join this group called ARCH, the Association for the Rights of Citizens with Handicaps. And what we did is we were a group of youth team members, 23 of us from my high school, that went, oh, thank you. I appreciate it. We were a group of youth team members that went all over the state of Wisconsin to elementary, middle school, and high schools and presented some somber, some funny skits about differences and how someone could have glasses, be in a wheelchair, or have Down syndrome, and all of us deserve respect, no matter what the difference is. So that helped me understand what philanthropy was, what volunteering was, how 23 people from high school could really make a difference in other people's lives. It was my way of learning that the world was bigger than high school and the drama that was in it, which I think is a big challenge for high school students nowadays. And my junior year, we got given the opportunity, ARCH youth team got given the opportunity to open up, create a presentation for the inaugural Shaken Baby Syndrome Vigil on the steps in the Capitol in Washington, D.C. And we were able to create this somber presentation, whatever we wanted to do. And I was voted as a junior in high school to open up the entire presentation and introduce ARCH. And there's 4,000 people that were going to be there, all affected by Shaken Baby Syndrome somehow, one way or another. And for the whole year prior to when we went around to all the elementary, middle school, and high schools that we usually did and asked every single person to sign a hand, promising to use their hands to help, not to harm, and understanding what Shaken Baby Syndrome was and how to prevent it. And what we thought was going to turn into this very small project ended up turning into this huge ordeal. And we ended up getting over 10,000 hands from people in Wisconsin promising to these 4,000 people in Washington that have been affected by shaken baby syndrome that they would never shake a baby, which means a lot to these people. And so what we did in Washington a few months later, I'm the only youth team member standing on stage, and we did a somber presentation, and then we unveiled this big banner of all these hands, and it was 2 football fields long. So it wrapped all the way around the wading pool, and these 4,000 people. And I remember standing on stage, and it was this very somber, sad feeling. These people were crying, they were hurt, their babies died, or their babies had disabilities. And I remember thinking to myself, God, there's nothing we can do to change this. There's nothing we can do to make these people feel better. But as we began the vigil, and the sun was going down, I get goosebumps talking about just envisioning it. The sun was going down, and we started singing I Will Not Forget You by Sarah McLachlan, all these youth team members in the audience. And the song started raising, and the lights started raising from the vigil, and we started unveiling this banner. I was standing on stage, and all of a sudden this somber, sad feeling went from that to a feeling of peace almost. That these people were so passionate and so thankful that a group of 23 students from Wisconsin did this for them and spread this message for them. So from that moment on, I realized that that was my passion. That philanthropy and volunteering and making a difference in the world was going to be something that was going to be important for me for the rest of my life. So fast forward about a year later, I wanted to share that side of the story with you, because that was where the passion began. A year later, I finally found my own. I had gotten this huge growth spurt in high school, so I was getting thin and, I was getting accepted finally, which at the time meant a lot. And one of my friends was competing in the Miss MISS Teen Wisconsin pageant, so I competed and I got first runner-up. So I got entitled to win this 1-year contract with John Casablanca Modeling School. And I got taught runway and how to walk and how to take pictures and all this stuff. And I was, all of a sudden, my dream, not passion, was to be a model. And I was going to make it happen no matter what. That's what I wanted to do when I got out of high school. And I completely forgot about my passion of philanthropy. So my first runway show was with Redken Fifth Avenue in Lake Geneva, Wisconsin. And I was naturally good at walking around a runway. I don't know where I got that, because no one in my family modeled. And the Redken artist, who I worked with for about 3 to 4 shows my senior year, asked me when I turned 18 to move to Arizona and be an international runway model. And because that was my dream, and I forgot about my passion, I did it. And when I turned 18, it's actually, my birthday was last Friday, and I moved to Arizona a week after my birthday when I was 18. And I didn't tell my parents. My parents were sleeping, and I packed my car up overnight. And the next morning, I've made them breakfast and eggs, which I never did. So my parents knew something was up. And I came out and I told them while they're eating their breakfast and all peaceful, and I said, Mom and Dad, I'm going to move to Arizona. And they're like, no, you're not. And I'm like, well, I'm 18 years old, and I'm going to do it. I had my car, I had my cell phone, even though I wasn't paying for them. And I said, I'm going to do it. So my parents, knowing how adamant I was, said, all right. My mom gave me $100. My dad gave me a Bible, even though he wasn't religious, like that was going to protect me somehow, and told me to go on my way. And at that time, $100 would pay for gas across the country. It's not like now. So that was 10 years ago. And I went to Arizona and I started my dream. I started following my dream, and I thought I was the most accomplished woman on the planet because I was 18 and I'm an international runway model. And I get there, my first show, they had asked, the agent of Redken asked me to lose 10 pounds. And I had about a month and a half to do it. So, not knowing how, because I never really worked out, I went through this huge growth spurt. I just decided not to eat, and it wasn't really a thing to me. I was like, well, this is working. I mean, I lost like 5 pounds my first week, and I'm like, oh, this is easy. And so my first show, I lost 10 pounds for it, and got my little $8,000 check for my runway show, and I was like, oh, this is great. And then 2 weeks later, I having fun with my money. I'm 18 years old, feeling responsible, actually being very irresponsible. And I got another offer to do another international show. Now the agent wanted me to lose 2 inches in my hips. So I was like, okay. I mean, when I moved to Arizona, I was 140 pounds. I'm 160 pounds right now, to give you a sense of what I look like, and that's important. And so to lose 2 more inches in my hips, I was like, oh God, I got to do it again. So I stopped eating for another month, and I did it. I lost the inches, I lost the weight, I did the show, I got the money, and this turned into this big chain of events every few months for me. And after the 4th or 5th show, about 7 months into it, I started losing my friends, I started losing my energy, couldn't work out, couldn't go out, I was a hair model and my hair was straggly. I mean, it was just awful. But I was so into this disability and this disorder that it didn't even faze me. So I started making friends in the modeling industry, and these girls started doing cocaine, and they started doing bulimia and all these tricks of the trade of losing weight. And about 2 months later, I got asked to lose even more weight. And this is the modeling industry for you. They just kept on asking, lose weight, lose weight, lose weight. And to be a runway model, they want you to be a walking coat hanger, and I just didn't get that. But I was so into the industry. So the agent asked me to lose more weight, and my good friend at the time was also a model who was struggling. We both decided that, we can't lose friends anymore. We got to go out, we got to party, we got to go to all these model shows and network. And we decided that we were going to go out, and we were going to eat whatever we want, drink whatever we want, and we were going to try throwing up, bulimia. And when you're in it, these things don't seem abnormal to you. They feel like feels like a game almost. I know it's hard to understand, but it didn't faze us. We went out and we came home together, and we were all excited. We put our hair up in a ponytail, and we went in front of a mirror, and I looked at her and I was like, ready? She's like, all right, ready. We both went in front of a toilet, and she applauded for me when I did it. I applauded for her when I did it, or when she did it, and we did it. And that became the next phase of the modeling industry. We would do this routine every week together, and we would just meet each other after drinks and go home and throw everything up. It was awful, right? I mean, you guys are all shaking your head like, I can't believe this is happening. But so about 2 years into it, after this weekly routine of going from bulimia and anorexia and not eating and all these things, I was now an 80-pound, 5'10" runway model. And I looked awful. My face was a corpse-like. Even makeup and doing my hair wouldn't help with my appearance. My body was now so thin that the agency was asking me to gain weight. But when you're in this disease, you don't know how to gain weight, you only know how to lose it. So about 2 years into it, I stopped getting shows, stopped getting booked as a model. I lost all my friends. One of my friends actually died from cocaine overdose on a stage during rehearsal, and which was rough. And then I decided that I was going to start bartending. I'm going to try and take myself out of this life, which is so hard because people are looking at me like you're ill. And I remember moving to my own apartment, and I was making all this money. I wasn't maintaining it at all. Like, I didn't know how to budget. I was 18 years old. I didn't know what to do. So now I'm 20, and I wrote checks for everything. I didn't care if they bounced. I just wrote another one. And so I wrote a check for the deposit for my apartment. Wrote a check for all my car payments. Everything's getting bounced. Never balanced my checkbook. Never looked into my account. And the week I moved into my own apartment, I came home from bartending one night, and my cell phone had just gotten shut off the day prior because my check bounced. So I came home and I walked up to my new apartment. All my boxes were still unpacked, and all my boxes were now in the hallway. And I had a note saying, "You're evicted because your deposit check bounced." So I didn't have an apartment. Didn't have any friends. I hadn't seen him in years. My cell phone shut off. I kid you not, you guys aren't going to believe this. Start walking downstairs. There's about 4 flights of stairs. I'm exhausted. I'm crying. Starts raining outside. Go figure. And I walk over, and my car is being repossessed. And I remember looking at myself that moment. I'm 20 years old, and I'm 80 pounds, and I'm like, what the fuck? I'm so sorry. I'm like, this cannot be happening. And I hadn't talked to my parents in years. My parents had no idea what was going on. I mean, I left them. I felt like I had nobody. So I went to a payphone, called my mom, crying, and she didn't understand a word I was saying, but I'm like, Mom, I don't have anyone else to call. I don't have anywhere else to go. I don't have any numbers. And she said, well, what's around you? And I said, well, there's a McDonald's, 24-hour McDonald's right across the street. And I gave her the cross sections, and she's like, if you don't hear from me in 8 hours, call me again. My mom's a saint. My parents are saints. And so I walked over to McDonald's, and I went to the bathroom, and I tried to commit suicide. And failed, thankfully, because it was the worst moment in my life. And then I was just really depressed. I'm like, God, I can't even kill myself, right? this is awful. So I walked out into McDonald's and I sat there, asked for a glass of ice water. I sat there, I cried. I felt like I was just in this black hole all of a sudden. And next thing I knew, my mom at 6 o'clock in the morning comes rolling up in her car. And I was like tear up because of it, because it means she didn't have to do that, you know. And she comes rolling up in a car that she had rented, and she ran over to me at McDonald's, and she embraced me. I mean, she still was so proud and still was so just happy that I was alive, you know. And when she saw me, she was just so sad, you know. She had no idea. So, sorry, I'm crying, you know. Thank you for crying with me. So my mom embraced me and she said, Michelle, we're going home. She got my car out of repossession. She turned my cell phone back on with Verizon. We packed up whatever we could from those boxes, threw away the rest. I was back to nothing. I had nothing except my mother. And we drove back to Wisconsin that night. And I remember coming home, and my parents took the doors. Before we even got home, my dad had taken the doors off of my bedroom, my bathroom, and we had this deep conversation with my mom the whole ride home. It was the longest 34 hours of my life. Because my mom went from screaming at me, to crying at me, to yelling at me, to loving me. Like, it was just emotional roller coaster. And she said, we're going to change this. You're not too deep. We're going to figure this out. You're going to go to college. You're going to get a job. And you're going to be an adult. And we're going to figure this out. So I went to college. Fast forward about 4 months. And I was, thankfully, I wasn't so far into this this disease that I couldn't fix myself. I didn't need therapy. I didn't need counseling. It was easy for me to just start eating again as long as someone watched me not throw it up, which my parents did. And 4 months later, my mom had enrolled me in the nearest technical college, and I was going to school. And I was gaining weight very quickly, actually, which is crazy. And, well, my mom's cooking probably didn't help. She did bread and cheese and beer and Wisconsin stuff. So I finally went to college, and all of a sudden, I discovered my passion again, and I discovered volunteering, and became part of the Wisconsin Marketing and Management Association, which was like a co-ed fraternity, became the vice president of civic consciousness with our chapter, and started feeling alive again, because I was able to learn about my community and give back to my community. And I started public speaking like I did back in high school when I was with Arch. And I realized that this passion that I had in high school was completely dark for 4 years. And I had no idea why it left me. But I just remembered that I wanted this dream of being a model so bad that I was willing to do anything to get it done, and I did. I did anything. And here I am, not being a model anymore, not living my dream anymore, but now I'm back to this original passion that I had, and I'm happy, and I feel fulfilled. So my story goes on a lot longer than that, but I always try to tell girls and tell women and tell everyone that I talk to that, you know, you're going to have two desires in life. You know, you're going to have those dreams that seem realistic and sometimes are very realistic, but unless you're passionate about what your dream is, you're just going to discover that's not meant for you. You know, you got to find what you're passionate about. You got to find what you're good at, and you got to go after the things that make you happy, not the things that you want to be. And going through that whole roller coaster of being a model, it changed my life for the better. And I'm very thankful to have discovered my passion for it. Thank you.
That took a lot of courage, because that's very personal, but that's also a story that I think especially young people need to hear, because there is so much social pressure. Everywhere you look, in the media, in all forms, there is this standard that women are held to be thinner, to be perfect, to have the perfect hair, the perfect teeth. Are your teeth whitened? Did you get that whitening done? Do you have the 4-inch waist and the It's incessant and it's continuous, and thank you so much for your story and being brave enough to come forward with that. That's beautiful. Thank you.